Here now to talk about this, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, of course, from California. Congressman, who should be worried here?
I think big tech should be worried. I think Google should be worried. And this is not the first time that they're looking at them. In 2012, the FTC looked at Google and found that they were anti-competitive behavior, found they used their monopoly in harming other individuals. And then they were allowed to solve that themselves. Now we're going to look back at that. You have to understand, Laura, 90% of all searches go through Google. And if you are on the second page that comes up, 95% of the people drop off. They have extreme amount of power. In the past, they read all the Gmail accounts. Did they tell you that in the privacy? They own YouTube as well. Facebook owns Instagram. They control so much of the data, and they've utilized that to keep other companies down.
So would you be in favor of treating companies like Google as kind of like we treat utility companies? They exist in part for a public trust, so they have to be treated as such?
I don't like utilities because then what happens is nothing grows. And what you do when you get a utility, you create a monopoly for them. Nobody else can compete. I like a world where you could actually compete. And what we found in 2012 is what they were using against travel, what they used against Yelp. They were actually keeping them down. Are other search engines allowed to go forward? And remember what Google did to the California Republicans 2 weeks before the election. If you searched California Republican Party, they said our ideology was Nazism. Not the party of Reagan, not the party of Lincoln.
Yeah, no, that was clever. All right, Congressman, your freshman colleagues are priding themselves, at least the Democrats, of being very tolerant. And we're finding that they can apparently dish it out, but they have a little trouble taking it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now blocking a conservative website, The Daily Caller, on Twitter. And Ilhan Omar, well, she said this.
I am frustrated every single time I hear people speaking about their faith and pushing that onto other people. Those that talk about their faith and want to push policies because of their faith are the ones that simply are caught with the hypocrisy of not living it out in their personal lives.
Congressman, anything you want to say to your colleagues here? I mean, first of all, the Daily Caller, I assume, has other ways of following AOC on Twitter, so I don't think blocking them really does much.
I don't think they're going to do much of it. This is wild. Do they understand what country we're living in? Religious freedom. Here we are on the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square, where thousands of people were murdered, and they're sitting there in Tiananmen Square, 1 million people craving to have freedom, freedom of speech and others. And the tanks rolled in. And today, China is less free than it was then. And what are we hearing? That same talk inside the House of Representatives? We believe in religious freedom. We believe in the ability to go forward. Those who claim tolerance seem to be the most intolerant individuals I've found.
And Congressman, we were saying that today when we were mingling with the protesters. I mean, what would be really courageous if they tried to float like a baby President Xi, like try to float him in Tiananmen Square.
Did they ever
See
protest?
How long that lasts.
Exactly. And did they ever protest? You can't even find Tiananmen Square if you're in China. They've taken it off the internet.
No, we did that. I did that in the angle. This is all scrubbing history. We have an anti-history movement in the United States that wants to scrub history and rip down markers and not have more debate, circumscribed debate. The anti-freedom forces in the United States are sadly, on the left. I mean, for all their caricaturing of conservatives, the left is wanting to limit speech of conservatives, and that's where we're getting back to these tech companies. I think Congress has a responsibility to step in if indeed it looks like they're trying to meddle with the next election by limiting debate and limiting speech in these big platforms.
Remember what we did in the last Congress? We brought in the CEO of Facebook, the CEO of Twitter, the CEO of Google, because that's exactly what we found. As much power as these companies have, they know everything about you in the process, but they utilize that to try to influence elections that we found later. Remember the day after the election where they were all crying in the process and what they had tried to help other certain people turn out to vote? That is a concern we all have.
All right, Congressman, you guys going to oppose Trump over in the House like the Senate is toying with on the tariffs, Mexico tariffs?
No, we support this president. And why, when you're about to have a meeting, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, is meeting with Mexico tomorrow. We want to solve this crisis at the border. Why wouldn't you help them be as strong as they can be? Stand up with them. And you know what? If you give the president his strongest hand, you'll never end up with tariffs, and we'll have a border that is secure.
All right, Congressman, thank you for joining us tonight.